Hello, everybody. Welcome back and welcome to the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 Were They Right live stream presented by us here at Flight Simulation Association. My name is Evan. I'm one of the co-founders of Flight Simulation Association. We're one of the folks who put on Flight Sim Expo. We helped arrange today's live stream, and I'm looking forward to a great and engaging conversation with some exciting and hopefully well-opinionated panelists who will be joining us here in about 10 minutes time. I wanted to just spend a couple minutes as we're getting things going and as people are joining us here on the stream to just share a couple of updates within the Flight Sim Association world and get you all set up for the panel discussion that's going to start here in about 5 or 10 minutes. First things first, excitingly, and maybe for the first time here at Flight Sim Association, this is the first of two live streams that we're doing today. So we're going to jump in with our panel talking about Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, how the release went, and what some of the opinions are. That's coming up right now. And then in about 4 hours from now at 7 o'clock Eastern or the top of the hour UTC, after that, we're going to be continuing on with an encore presentation of something called Sim and Fun. So a little bit of background here. First of all, you need to know that there is an air show called Sun and Fun, which happens in Lakeland, Florida in April. We're actually going to be at that air show. We've got a tent or actually a hangar space dedicated to showing off flight sim for real world pilots. So you're going to see us at that show. And what happens in that air show is hundreds of pilots fly their own airplanes right into the air show, which is super cool. And so to help pilots prepare for that, Pilot Edge, which is the online ATC network, a way for you to communicate with real controllers, paid service that you can use to add air traffic control to your flight simulator. Pilot Edge is running this thing called Sim and Fun, where they are going to actually allow you to fly the real procedures that you fly into the air show with the real controllers that are at the air show, all of this in your flight simulator. And the Real Air Show Sun and Fun actually encourages pilots to use Pilot Edge and to practice the procedures so that when they do the real thing, they're all ready to go. It's done with the real air traffic controllers that actually go do the real thing, and it's all available to us here in the flight sim world. So if that's a thing that you're interested in, you want to learn a little bit more maybe about how that works, or if you're planning to go to Sun and Fun, what we're doing later today is a review of how that procedure works to help you get ready for all that. So that's at 7 o'clock right here on our YouTube channel, top of the hour UTC as well, for those of you who are planning to join us. I also wanted to share as we get maybe about 2 or 3 minutes away from getting started here that we have a new benefit for our Flight Sim Association captains. So if you are an FSA captain and you're part of our captain membership program, you now have access to Odyssey Aviation's Adventure Pack subscription. This is a new thing that's really designed to help give purpose to your flight sim flying. So each month they give you a custom created flight plan along with custom scenery available for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and that's sent right to your inbox. It's a paid subscription for those of you who aren't captains, but if you're part of our membership, you get this for free. You don't have to do anything except for sign up. You can scan over on that QR code that you see on the screen to learn a little bit more about Odyssey Aviation. And for those of you FSA captains watching, Larry, I see you said hi in the chat. Super appreciate your support. The FSA captains allow us to run the organization that we do. They help cover the costs of running these webinars, and it unlocks a whole bunch of great discounts and membership perks for you as well. So if you're not an FSA captain and you'd like to learn a little bit more about what that is and how it works, please visit us at flightsimassociation.com or scan that QR code on the screen. And that's one way that you can help to support us here at Flight Sim Association and support some of these webinars and sessions like the one that we're about to get you into right now. So for those of you who aren't familiar, you may not have seen our previous session. Back in November, of course, we had the release of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and it was a big deal in our community, obviously one of the biggest probably pieces of news that we've had for the past several years. So just before that launch in November, we gathered a bunch of content creators who had gone to Arizona, who had seen the preview, who had a little bit of time in the sim, and we asked them for their opinions, their ideas. We asked them what they thought of the simulator. We asked them what they thought the simulator was going to do for our community, and we asked them how they felt like the launch was going to go. And now we are bringing back some of those panelists to find out if they were right, to see what their experiences have been, to see how much they've been flying the sim so far, to see what their reactions are to it. And so we're excited to be able to hear from them, hear some opinions, and hear some ideas about what the sim may mean for the future of us here in the flight sim community. I'm very thankful to the 5 panelists who are joining us. Unfortunately, we couldn't get everybody back due to a couple of scheduling conflicts. Vashko from MSFS Add-ons, as well as Two-Tone Murphy, who were both with us the first time. Unfortunately, they were not able to join us today. We've got some replacements. And at the last minute, unfortunately, due to a family issue, Sergio from helisimmer.com also wasn't able to join us today. So we've got some new faces and some old faces to share how things have gone with the rollout and the launch of Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 and what you can expect coming up. So with that in mind, to help remind you of what happened, I am going to play a quick recap video, about 3.5 minutes of what we talked about and some of the ideas that were shared on that last stream that we did. And after that, we are going to bring on the panelists and we're going to share some opinions and some ideas about the future of the sim. So I'm going to bring up that video. We'll play that for you so you can see what we said back in November on our last stream, and then I'll be back with the team and the panelists to kick things off on today's live session.
Is cool. This has a lot of really good potential, but there's a
I'm going to hand things over to the panel, starting with our moderator today, which is Two-Tone Murphy, who's right up there above me. Good to see you all, friends. And Two-Tone, take it away, please.
Thanks very much. I'm in charge of something brilliant, right? From your perspective, is there anything that has really stood out for you?
We are in the golden age of flight simulation, but especially now for general aviation.
Helicopters were not there, but they were going to add them later because they wanted to add them properly.
Mhm.
So they have been listening to the community. And that's one of the things that I take from Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is the fact that they are listening to the community.
it was like, okay, this is cool. This has a lot of really good potential, but there's a long way to go here still. A lot of things need to be kind of fine tuned. Like it's honestly one of my first times getting to play a game that early. So I get it. I understand that it's alpha things you gotta figure out whatever. And so I still found fun. Like you said, I do play a lot of different sims, a lot of different flight sims, and so honestly, like there's no other flight sim like Microsoft, even 2020 right now. And so 2024 is a major upgrade.
And I think clarified pretty clearly that you still gonna have control on what you download. You can the content manager is still going to be there. The rolling cage is still going to be there. So if you want to pre-cage everything, if you want to like pre-download everything like you did it before, you still can.
Is that all the career stuff are careers. These are real life careers. This is not just, oh, let's go and take let's go do this for XP, for example. Like you're like these are actually careers that they're simulating, and all the things you can do in 2024, you can do or have an ambition to do in real life. And so that's
So
why
to those people that are shouting that Microsoft Flight Simulator is a game because they have missions, you are either completely misunderstanding the concepts or you just want to bash the product because you want to bash the product seriously. Because I don't
Perfectly okay to think that Microsoft Flight Sim is, especially now, as much as a simulator as a game. Because what I feel Microsoft is trying to do is both broadening the scope of what Microsoft Flight Sim is and trying to reach new audiences, but also at the same time it's going deeper into what is the core of flight sim.
since they dropped that dev alpha, I think it's just been panic. I talked to one developer. I'm not gonna say his name, but he said that he had slept very few hours like in the days following that dropping because what they need to do to make their aircraft kind of like fully compatible with 2024, not necessarily with the new features, but just making it kind of working better, is taking much longer than they expected. But I do
there
want to
was a lot of systems that were changed or improved. And with those changes and those improvements, stuff can break.
In fact, I've spoken with a few developers, and Microsoft has been telling them if your aircraft is not working right now, don't change things. Just report the issue so we can change things on our end so that it works seamlessly.
I think that we are going to see very good times ahead with the museum, but we are going to have to be a bit patient, guys. That's it.
So there's your recap. That's what they said back before the launch of Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. And now let's find out if they still think the same way and what they think is going to happen over the next few months. I'm going to bring on our panelists and get things started. I'll be here in the chat listening and watching and reading along with you, answering any questions that you have about the stream. And if you have questions for the panelists, this is designed to be interactive. They've got a few topics they're going to start off with, but after that, by all means, we're going to open the floor. So any questions that you have, pop them in the chat here on the Flight Sim Association YouTube channel, or if you're watching it with any of our other friends online, just pop it in the chat wherever you're looking. We'll categorize all those questions and we'll be answering those here probably in about 45 minutes time once we get through some of the stuff we have set up. But for now, let me bring on my friends and the panelists to get things started and kick us off with Microsoft Flight Sim 2024's Were They Right recap. And I'm going to start by sending things over to you, Howard, and the panel. Go ahead.
Super. Thanks, Evan. Hey, it's great to be here. And thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm going to help with moderating the channel today, but we're going to get some opinions from everybody and let's have a great discussion. I'd like to start out by introducing Calum Martin, co-founder and content director. Everybody give a wave when I introduce you. And he's been flight simming since FS 2000 with a mouse and a keyboard, but he loves most types of flying. And we're really glad he's here, co-founder and content director at FS Elite.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having us. Can't wait to get into the discussion with everybody here.
Next, I'd like to introduce Giuseppe Neva, the editor-in-chief at Simulation Daily and an aviation gaming journalist for 25 years. Welcome, Giuseppe.
Hello, and it's Giuseppe, but it's fine.
Giuseppe, I keep saying, yeah, he said replace the J, the G with a J. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
My
it's
apologies.
Fine. It's
glad
great.
to have you here.
Can't wait to have the discussion.
You started
Hello,
flying.
everyone.
You started flying on the ZX Spectrum, so that's even
Oh, yeah.
before me. So way to go! That's like wow, that's a long time ago for those of us who
I
know what
was
that is.
6.
And also, I'd like to introduce everybody, Alyson Johnson, a retired private pilot in real life and an avid Twitch streamer who recreates historic flights by trailblazing women in aviation, such as Amelia Earhart. Welcome, Alyson.
Hey, Howard. Nice to be here and with several of you again, sharing the stage at Flight Sim Expo. Great to be here.
Next up, I just want to do the introductions first, and then we'll get into the questions, you guys. So now I'd like to introduce Blue Games. And a thrill-seeking aviation enthusiast, Blue flies everything from airliners and fighter jets, bush planes, helicopters. Let's just say this, if it moves fast, Blue can drive it. Welcome, Blue.
That's accurate, but thank you for having me again, guys. Good to be here.
And I think we have covered all 4 of you. Yeah, that's great. So what we want to do now is we want to ask some of the questions, and we've got a few that we have ready to go first that we're going to ask the panelists and have their opinions from them. And then we'll address the questions, as Evan said, in the chat, in the various forums that we have chat going right now. So by all means, to those of you who are watching right now, put your questions in there and we'll summarize those and ask those to the panel as time permits. So what I'd like to start with first, so here we go with question number 1, everybody. Let's talk about the launch. Shall we just open that up right away? Because, you know, as I think it gives some great examples of what to do that perhaps other large titles would be looking at. So the question to everybody here is, what do you think of the first week of MSFS 2024? The first week of the launch. We'll start with you, Alyson. What do you think about that?
Oh, so I'm going to be critical. But the first week was not great. You know, too many people had too many problems. They worked on it. They kept us informed. But I really think that perhaps things should have been done better, personally. I think they could have staggered the launch. I think they could have certainly not released it to Game Pass on day 1, which meant a lot of people couldn't get in. Database locks. That's a historical thing that everyone's had since time immemorial. You're never going to get past those. If they could fix those, Oracle would have already done so. But it was unfortunate, but it didn't go well in my opinion. But they did keep us informed.
Okay, and Giuseppe, what do you think about that? The first week of the launch.
I was among the lucky people that got pretty much past the most problems on day 2. So luckily, I was like, after day 2, I had a pretty smooth experience. Of course, I could hear like people screaming from all over the place. So it's that of course it was smooth for me, and it was smooth for other people. But I'm sure it was smooth for everyone. I know it got very big regional differences. Like I think Calum is gonna have a very different opinion, since it was in the UK, and the UK looks like was one of the worst affected regions. Personally, I'm in Italy, so in the South Europe, I think it went pretty much better. But yeah, personally, I didn't have that many problems as other people. I still had some problems. I still had some hangups in day 1. Still had some issues. Still had texture that didn't load. And then my problems were not related to the cloud or the internet, but were related to bugs after that. But yeah, I wouldn't say my launch was as terrible as other people, but of course there were issues, and the issues need to be learned from, and I think they did learn from them, from what we are hearing.
From what we're hearing, yeah. Calum, he mentioned that you might have had a different experience because you were tuning in from the UK, and as a lot of us know, this product relies on the cloud for a lot of its stuff now. It's just so big, but that affected by the sounds of it, it affected you and maybe your community where you are. What do you think about that? Give us your thoughts.
I mean, being honest, I wasn't around on the launch. I was away on business. I wasn't.
Maybe that was the best plan, right?
I think it probably ended up being that way. Yeah. I mean, I think a few of us were at the global preview event, and even then we saw kind of the writing on the wall. I think that streaming was going to be, well, we were told it was going to be a big influence of kind of the sim, and so having spoken to the development team as well, literally days just before the launch of it, and I kept asking the questions. I'm sure other content creators who kind of spoke to members of the development team, is the launch going to be okay? Is it going to hold up? Is the servers going to be working? And they repeatedly said yes. And then even subsequent conversations after that, it was not to do with the server, it's to do with the caching. I mean, there's probably a multitude of different reasons as to why it kind of fumbled at launch, and it sucks, and it is a big shame. But as a flight simmer who's been doing this for years and years and years, I mean, I kind of expected something to not go smoothly, because I think that's just kind of the industry that we're in, and it sucks. But I think experience has taught me that I'm not going to try a flight sim on day 1, because there's just going to be some sort of problem, and that's okay. I mean, it's kind of the way it's then fixed in the future. So yeah, a shame it kind of launched the way it did, and I think it kind of left a sour taste, and I think it's been a hard pill for people to swallow, but I think it's about what the future holds that is the most exciting thing for me.
Thanks for that, Calum. Blue, I don't want to leave you out. I've asked 3 already, so I'm going to ask you also for your opinion of that first week launch. We might not be able to ask all our questions to all 4 of you, but I think to start off with, it would be appropriate to have your opinion too about what you thought about that launch week.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be short too. I think it was a disaster. It was disappointing, just like Calum. We've been flight simming for years, and this is like our game. This is our sim. This is our main thing. We put our lives into this. We love this, and for our game, like a lot of games bomb, right? It happens, and we're like, oh, that sucks for them. But then for our sim, our thing to be so exciting, and then on day 1, like can't even play it. It was just really disappointing. So yeah, disaster. The org and the team admitted that. They fessed up to it. I respect that they actually took credit, for that. I was a part of Club 97 or Club 97%, being stuck. I was stuck on trying to just get into the game for the first 8+ hours before I could even play it. So I did not have a good first day. And then after that, when I was able to play, I was able to, there's a lot of great things about it, right? But it was very obvious that it wasn't done. I jumped straight into career mode. I had placeholder text. I had, aircraft spawning upside down, just various things that probably would have been caught if there was a beta. So my honest thoughts is that they just should have did a beta period, just like they did with 2020, and they would have found a lot of this stuff. And I think that they should have pushed the release back by several months. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, honestly, Blue. That's it. Every other product Microsoft puts out, they have a beta period. So what happens? So, we all do wonder that. What I'd like to do is move to the next question, which actually is a really good segue into what's happened since then. Where do we think MSFS 2024 is now? And there's like a multiple questions here, but let's just say this: where is it right now? Is it stable? Does it replace 2020? And this is, these are certainly questions that can raise a lot of blood pressure for people. That's for sure. But it'd be great to just openly talk about that here. And I'd like to start with you, Calum, just to have this. If users haven't upgraded yet, should they? And is it a stable platform that replaces 2020? Let's take those two questions and make them into one right now.
I can give you an answer. No. Again, I've been in Flight Sim for years. When a version of something is released, I don't immediately jump because there's going to be a bunch of add-ons that I religiously use that are not going to be compatible with the next iteration of the sim. And I think it's very easy to kind of look at these gorgeous new sims, and like MS24 is a phenomenal looking simulator. But again, it comes with the caveat of that the things that I like to use all the time in a flight sim is just not going to be ready for it. So for me, I don't think it's worthwhile jumping. I have it installed and I certainly dabble, and I certainly kind of have things that I'm slowly migrating and kind of getting used to. But right now, my sim of choice is still 2020. It's stable. It has all the add-ons that I want to use and fly. But I can also appreciate that, when Microsoft kind of introduced Flight Sim 2020 to the world and opened it up to the Xbox audience, for many on Xbox, pretty much everyone on Xbox, this is probably their first experience of kind of seeing an iteration of a flight sim. And I am totally sure that, as soon as 24 was released, a lot of people did uninstall 2020 thinking, I'm going to just jump straight into kind of where I left off, and probably came away a little bit disappointed. But again, as an experienced flight sim, it just takes a little bit of time for it to kind of come around and be okay again. So I don't think it's a stable platform at the moment. I know Sim Update 1 is still in its beta period, and we kind of all expected it to be a public available at Sim Update. But as we've heard from Jorg and other developers on their live streams and through their blogs, the lesson that they learned with 24, and I think what we've mentioned is to not release something unless it is really stable for many people. And I think that's the lesson they really took away from the launch of 24, and they're going to implement that with the Sim Update. So yeah, it's kind of annoying it's not out yet, but then they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't, because if they release it and it's buggy as hell, we'd only moan about it. But if they then make us wait for longer, we're still going to moan about it. So yeah, that's my take on it. I don't think it's ready.
So your short answer, Calum, is no, right? That was your short answer to start with, right? He's like, no, if they haven't upgraded yet, should they? And your short answer was no, I think is the summary there, yeah. So for the rest of you, the three of you that are left here, what would you like to add to that question? Is it a stable platform? And let's get your opinions on, if users haven't upgraded yet, should they?
No, I agree with Calum right now.
So there's two no's, yeah?
Yep, there's a reason for that, is that like you, Howard, I have people flying along with me all the time. In 2024 right now, I can't see anyone, because if you get more than 10 kilometers away, you can't see anyone. It becomes a very lonely sim. And I stream my recreations to spend time with the community, and they felt that they couldn't do that. They felt that it became a very divisive launch, in that those people that didn't want to move to 2024 felt that they were missing out and losing friends. So I made a conscious decision now to go and fly online streaming in 2020 so that I didn't leave anybody behind, right? However, off stream, I'm involved in the beta. In 2020, I was never involved in betas, because of course you couldn't then multi-stream with your community if by the time your stream came around. They've had a few patches. It's been a bit ropey at times. You can now see people over 100 kilometers away. It's no longer lonely. I'm flying over airports, in airliners, in GA, in helicopters, and you can see people. It's also a lot more smooth now than it was. So I think people are going to see a big change in Sim Update 1. I think that they're right to delay it until it's absolutely right to go. So I'm confident, and having seen it through the beta phases, I think that they're going in the right direction. Just don't release it until the foundations are solid.
Good. That's a good
And
statement.
I agree with her. It sucks that the beta's been pushed back, but I think that new motto, right, is like, don't push it out until it's done, until it's ready.
Right.
And I think that's the mistake they made with 24 initially, and they were really burned by that,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
now,
The
even
sting is
with the
still there.
update,
Yeah.
exactly. Now, even with the updates, like, all right, we got to test the heck out of this thing. Even when we make
Yep.
tiny changes, test it. And I don't like waiting for them, but it's got to happen. That's the only way we're going to get stable version. That's the only way 2024 is going to evolve and become stable over time. And so I agree. To answer the question, do I recommend 2024 like to upgrade? I personally mainly fly 2024 when I can, and it really depends on the add-on, because I've realized that I fly very few default aircraft in 2020 or 24. And so it's like, if I want to fly 777, I'm in 2020. That's the only place I can do that, right? If I want to fly the H-way Comanche, which I freaking love, I'm gonna do that in 2020, because that's the only place that I can do that. But when those planes are available in 24, that's where I'm gonna prefer to do that, right? And so, but to answer the question, I always say, if like GA or low flying is your thing, it's a massive difference in upgrade for 2024. But if you're doing airliner stuff, you're just fine in 2020.
In 2020, yeah. Yeah, well, and speaking to that too, Alyson, you do a lot of low and slow flying. I mean, the recreations you do, they were all VFR back in those days, right? With some radio communications, but same with me. We all do low and flow in my streams as a real pilot. Low and slow is what I do with a 172. But so the idea of the multiplayer tags still being there was a very good issue, a very good point you're making, which I like. I like seeing that, how many people are there with us, and even announce them on stream while they're flying with us. They like that. And I can see that in testing beta, I can see that they fixed that distance for your multiplayer tags. They fixed a lot of the dynamics that are in, the flight dynamics themselves. I could speak to that for quite a while here too. And I might do a little bit of that too, just to give you guys an idea of what's different in the 2020 and 2024 from an instructor perspective. But maybe Giuseppe, we haven't heard from you on this one. We've got two no's, and we've got under certain conditions. I think Blue would be your summary, right? Then that would move
I mostly agree with Blue. And personally, I've dropped 2020 like a stone. I've uninstalled and I'm never going to go back again. Simply because
I like this guy.
2024.
Blue says, I like this guy.
Brave man.
Simply because, I mean, there is so
same as
much
you.
to do in 2024 that I don't really need to go back. But I understand that depending on what you want to do, like, there is no yes or no 100% answer, because depending on what you want to do, one simulator may be better than the other. If you're a Boeing guy, you definitely should stick with 2020, because 2020 has SPMDG still. So, and I love to fly a PMDG, and I miss them, but I have other aircraft that I can fly. So I'm like just waiting, and it's not a problem for me to wait for the 777 to come to 2024, even for even more the 737, because I love to fly the 737 more than 777. But still, I can wait. It's not gonna kill me. But on the other hand, I love to fly the A330, and there is no A330 on 2020 that is better than the default A330 in 2024.
Interesting.
I'm sorry because
don't be sorry,
because
that's why you're
I'm
here.
going
We want to hear what you have to
This
say.
is true.
because this is gonna point the finger straight at a certain company, and I don't want to point finger at anyone.
Right.
But unfortunately, like the 3030 is kind of missing in unless you, I mean, the valiant efforts of certain freeware developers to have a flyable and enjoyable A330 in 2020 are great, but I think the Inibuild 3030 is like solid. So at least it's solid for me. So I enjoy flying it a lot. Phoenix works, so I enjoy that as well. I would say I'm a 50% airliner guy and a 50% general aviation guy. There is a ton of really solid general aviation aircraft in 2024 among the the default and among the freeware because they've been coming. So I'm being satisfied with what I have to fly. And at the moment, I really don't feel like, oh my God, I don't have PMDG, so I have to go back. I would love PMDG to come back, and I hope that it's coming soon. From what Robert says, Ronaldo says, at least the 777 should come pretty decently soon. Let's hope. So, but on the other hand, I'm not missing stuff to fly. I have 330, 320, 321. They work. They're solid. The GA ones are solid. There is aircraft that are not solid. I just avoid those, until they become solid. I've been on Sim Update 1 like forever. It's a good experience right now. And if you are okay with downloading a beta, then Sim Update 1 now is solid. So if you're okay, you should. And one thing that I always say, if you're passionate and you know that you're gonna be on 2024 at some point, then there is no real reason to delay getting it, because you're getting it at some point. So unless you're really waiting for a sale or something, or if you have Game Pass or whatever, there is no reason not to try it.
Yeah, can I just pitch in one more thing real quick? My reason for actually joining the Sim Update 1 beta was basically how much worse could it get? Right? Like my experience.
Got a point, right? Yeah.
My experience in the current version, the stable version, was it was like, nah, it was so bad. I was like, might as well do the beta. It can't get any worse than it already is. But I want to make a point though, back on 2020, is I think that we actually, all of us, probably have taken for granted how good 2020 is when 24 came out, because a lot of us went back to 2020, and when I went back to 2020 after 24 came out and I was flying my 2020 planes, I was like, man, this is, for one, like, it's not graphically a massive downgrade, and then two, it's just an all-around smooth experience. You have all of your add-ons now, you know what I'm saying? You got all your sceneries working. 2020 matured in a beautiful way in that 4 or 5 years or whatever. And 24 is I think it's gonna happen as well, but it's gonna take some time. So I just want to kind of throw that in there as well, as far as kind of giving 2020 some credit.
Yeah, I agree with you. Did you know you can fly the Comanche in 2024 though, Blue? It works
I'm gonna
fine.
have to try that today.
He says you can.
I'm installing it right now.
I'm going
you absolutely can.
He loves that plane. Yeah, he loves that.
I've been flying it for weeks, so it's fine.
So I do want to mention about realism, you guys. One of the things that really blew me away, I'm the same as you, Giuseppe. When I moved to 24, I kept 2020. I still have it on my system. I have it on multiple systems. And I do testing on Xbox. I do testing on my laptop and on PC. And I have different versions of the sim and all of that in beta. So I get this really rounded idea of how good it works and how well it's been doing. And quite honestly, I haven't gone back to 2020. I thought I would. It's still here on my system. There's no reason to get rid of it. And I thought I would be doing comparison screens all the time for people on my stream, and I'm not. I'm just having a ball with, career mode itself, which isn't for everybody. But I've been doing activities in career mode I never would have done in free flight. Can you go put out fires on a mountain? Can you go rescue someone off a mountainside, sitting 60 degrees on a mountainside with a winch? All these things that we're doing in activity mode or in career mode, give me variety now other than free flight. I'm still doing free flights every Saturday with my group, but and I'm doing lessons on Tuesday. I'm doing all these things still, but now I'm doing all this extra variety. I do at least a mission a day just for fun. So I'm looking at the vegetation. We've been up in Iceland. We've been over in the Alps. We've been all of these places where, wow, people actually think that's a photograph I took when it's just a screen snap. So there's so many newer things that make it the wow factor. And to me, it has to be a wow factor, or why would you move? But so apart from, the glitches and the things that could go wrong, and sorry, everybody, I think I have an airplane going over my head right now, so there might be some extra noise here. But apart from all of that, the realism is there. Looking deeper, which we won't go today, but going deeper into the sim itself, when you look at the new wake turbulence, the multi-threaded, the less impact on performance, when you look at some of the stuff, the surface aerodynamics, I can land in a desert to pick up a person who needs to be rescued. And when I take off, I can hit a rock and bounce over and flip the plane. in real life, you can hit a rock and bounce over and hit and kill the plane. And, so those things are, okay, now I have to actually watch the terrain as I take off. Where's my best takeoff? I have to turn into wind. I've got to make sure there's no rocks in front of me. And it's like, wow, it's getting real. It's getting more real than it was, apart from all of the, the hiccups that we've been seeing along the way. So just from a realism perspective, when I'm teaching spins or I'm teaching, a forward slip into a runway without flaps, these things need to be taught. And it's nice that we can do that in the sim better now without any excuses for the sim. So I'm completely sold on moving forward with all of the things they've changed, even the things under the covers that people haven't realized yet, because they may not even care about forward slips. They might not care about landing in a crosswind properly. So those things don't really matter to everybody. And then there's others too who need to have the reward of career mode. They need to break in the money for doing it right, apart from that. So there's some who will gravitate towards that also. So I just wanted to speak a bit about the realism, because I have to show that realism to my students when I'm doing lessons and stuff like that. And I think that gives a little different perspective than the average simmer.
I totally agree with you there. I mean, doing a forward slip in 2024 is so much different and controlled than it is in 2020. They're pretty now.
Yeah.
There's also the fact that 2024 it has a lot of innovations in terms of technology. But the funny thing is that many they have been presented to us as innovations because they are innovations of flight simulation, but it had been playing catch up with the rest of the gaming industry. Like for instance, like the what are they doing with modular thing and LODs and all that. If you look at games like that from 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, they were already there. They'd never been there in flight simulation, and my hardware performance in 2024 is much better because of that, because it's actually using my hardware as it should be used
As it should
of
be used. Yeah, that's a good
brute
statement.
forcing things that
Right.
because the 2020 was still so much based on the FSFX engine. 24 still is, but not as much. So it's using my hardware a lot better.
Yeah, huge difference. I mean, we have community flyers that are running 1660 cards are running better than they ever did in 2020, when they used to have frame rates at like 10 frames per second. Now they're back up again 30 and 40 frames, and they're just, wow, I can still keep my same card. Well, I mean, a 1660 is still below the minimum recommended, but still, they're actually happy to hear that their hardware will work better in 24 than it did in 2020. And that's due to, underlying architecture and how they've designed it. One of the reasons they had to design it from the ground up, right?
2024 actually runs on my Asus ROG Ally, like the portable one, with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and 2020 does not.
So that's, these are good things to know, you guys, and from us who ring it out and spend hundreds of hours, right? Yeah. So the live poll that popped up, you guys, that you saw there, the results of that we just did, 80% have tried 2024, 38% say it's worth it to upgrade to 2024. All right, so 80% have tried it, and 38% say it's worth it to upgrade to 2024. So, we'll see how those numbers change, and maybe Flight Sim Association will do a future stream again to see how it is a year from now. And you never know, right? We can see what that looks like when it comes that time, right? So what I'd like to do for the panel, you guys, what I'd like to do is get on to question 3 of 4, and then we'll take the Q&A questions that we're starting to gather here. So the third question here is about, this is the hotspot question, which we've been sort of working around, right? There's some quite critical reactions to the launch, some brutal reactions to the launch, and some from some of the popular content creators in our community. Is there a balance to be struck between fair, critical comment and outright bashing? And do you think some in our community cross that line? What do you guys think about that, the community reaction to this launch? And we'll start with you. Let's start with you, Giuseppe.
Well, I think that I understand frustration. Frustration is like, I work in the gaming industry, so I'm like, my website does games as much as it does simulator. So I know everything about community frustrations, and I see people like going far out of what should be like a good reaction to problems. I draw the line as people should be fired for this. People should do this job. Like, I seen many people saying that Jorg Newman should lose his job, and I don't think that's a good idea. And I think we owe Jorg and his team a little bit more than that, considering what they did, bringing Microsoft Flight Simulator back to us in 2020. I understand this frustration, but I don't think developers should lose their jobs over this kind of problems, mostly because it's not their decision. Like there is people above them that take most of the decision in terms of like when something is released, if something gets a beta. They work within a big organization, which definitely has upsides and has drawbacks. The drawbacks is that you are much more constrained on what you can do and what you cannot do. I do not personally, for instance, I do not think they said, "Oh, we don't want to do a beta because we don't want to do a beta." They probably had some kind of constraint there that they had to work around, or they simply say, or someone above them simply say the sim is called Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, so you have to release in 2024. No question about it. Like you're working above Jorg, there is Matt Booty, which is the head of Xbox Studios. Above him there is Phil Spencer. Above him there is Satya Nadella. So there is a lot of like people above. In the end, I think we as and I'm concluding. So we as flight simmers, we are better served by not having people losing their job over this and continuing to do their job and like put in the learnings they have from this disaster, instead of like people, like refreshing the development team completely, and then we are like starting from scratch, losing a ton of experience and talent.
I have to agree, like completely. I don't think people realize just how lucky we are to have someone like the Asobo team, like the Microsoft team, who really stand up for us as flight simmers in order to for us to have these flight sims. Because looking at the video game industry right now, there's redundancies being made all the time. Studios are closing left and right, and not just studios that are with failing games, with really successful both critically and financially, they're closing down all the time. So to have Asobo still continue to work on the flight sim franchise like they have, and for as long as they have, through sim updates, through world updates, through all these aircraft updates, through having all these different partners create all these new aircraft as well. It wasn't a successful launch, as we kind of discussed already, but to kind of call out people and say, certain people should be fired, or certain studios should shut down, or certain focuses should be shifted or changed, they're kind of off the mark completely. And I, for one, wouldn't want to see anyone fired. If anything, this is just fuel for those teams to kind of take all that feedback and improve the sim. And kind of like what Blue was saying earlier, I mean, look back at 2020 and how far that's come. When that came out in August 2020, it was fine. And then 5 sim updates later, we're now on Xbox, and there was a bit of turbulence then, but like we're on sim update, I think 12 or 13 now, and it's a solid simulator that is, stable for the most part, with great content. The SDK is kind of really helpful now for a lot of developers, and 24 is going to get there. It's just going to take a bit of time, and this is what all the devs have said. So just have some patience, be positive, help people who need support, and we're going to get there eventually. So yeah, I think don't need to cross any lines and get people fired. That's just ridiculous. If anything, we should be like super grateful that someone is really, or people are back in our corner as a simming community.
Cool. What do you think? Again, the question: do you think some in our community crossed the line and went into full bashing mode, etc.? Those of you we haven't heard of yet, Alyson, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they did cross the line. There is nothing wrong with being constructively critical. There's a passion, there's a love for flight sim. We all want it to be brilliant. There was a lot of hype. We listened to that hype. A lot of people believe the hype. And as some of them said here, the sim has matured. It's, we're nearly into the 5th year of the sim. And a lot of people are forgetting what 2020 was like when it launched. I had an AMD card. I could hardly fly for 30 minutes at a time before it CTD'd and crashed. And that was very much the case for many of us until at least Sim Update 5, when the support for Xbox came in and they added AMD optimization. At that point, it was way better. And now, over 4 years, we now have a very mature, very solid product. And I think everyone was expecting that plus. But believing people should be fired is not constructive.
Right.
Give your feedback. They have listened. They do respond. Just be nice. It doesn't hurt to be nice, but still be critical. You can still say, I've stood up. I've said on my streams, it's not for me yet. It's not for us yet because I'd leave too many people behind. And they should have done X, Y, and Z. But at no point have we ever said, well, God, people should lose their jobs. That's beyond the pale, in my opinion.
I'm gonna pitch in here just
That's
a
good.
quick second. This
I
might be a
saw you
little
perking up there. Yeah,
this might be a little counterproductive. I don't think you should say people need to be fired per se. But I do think changes need to happen, right? It's a leadership thing, right? Obviously there were mistakes made with this release. Some of the decisions weren't the right decisions. I don't know if people didn't research correctly to know how many people were coming in. I don't know, right? Only their company and who's in leadership there knows where the breakdown was that caused this issue. And we kind of talked about this before the show, and I think Giuseppe mentioned this, was that there's higher ups, right, than Jorg, for example, right? Jorg is the guy we see. He's our face of Microsoft Flight Sim. But as we know, they are basically a Xbox game studio, right? And Xbox and Microsoft are much bigger entities. And there's people up top pulling strings. And I'm sure, I've met Jorg in person. I will defend him because I feel like I've seen his heart. I've met him even outside of a gaming context, right? And I feel like he probably is trying to stand up and defend for us and possibly losing in this particular fight. So I don't want to completely throw him under the bus for this. But again, I think they do need to be held accountable, though, right? Wherever that breakdown was, whoever it was, it might have been above, right? Maybe Jorg or somebody said, hey, man, this ain't ready. We shouldn't release. And somebody else was like, just send it. Like, the money's already there. The marketing dollars are already there. You know what I'm saying? Like, that conversation happened somewhere. I don't know who. But that conversation had to have happened. It's when we got the sim, it was, blind obvious that it was not ready when we got it. And there's no way that all these development teams, all these people who play this game and test this game didn't see that, right? So, and like I said, they've already mentioned that they've had discussions with the people above Microsoft Flight Sim, not even just Microsoft Flight Sim, but the other games, so that way this doesn't happen to other Xbox games that come out in the future. And sadly, we just have to be the guinea pig in this particular situation. So,
I think that's really fair, because a lot of people behind or out there in the community don't actually know how this power struggle works in companies. I'm a CEO of my product. I don't get to say when it goes out. My directors do. So, if you're a startup, you have control. But if you're in a big corporation, there are always people above you. And sometimes, showing things that fail might get you a better resourcing in the future to have the time you need. I think can only be better.
Thing is that something that it's important that we taking in account is that Microsoft Flight Simulator has tried a lot of things that were never tried before. I'm not saying in the Flight Simulator world. I'm saying in the whole gaming industry, because for instance, making 80 development teams working together for a game is unprecedented. Like, you look at Ubisoft that does the Assassin's Creed franchise, for instance, they have like 12 students working together, not 80. And that kind of thing, like the whole thing with the cloud, that's also unprecedented. And many may say, "Oh, the cloud is a problem. We shouldn't do that." But I am of the idea that that moving on to the cloud at this point for flight simulation is inevitable, unless you want to hold flight simulation back. And this will be a very, very long discussion, and I am actually going to have an article about it pretty soon. But I do believe that there is the accountability discussion that Blue brought up. I'm pretty sure it happened at Microsoft, and Microsoft is not a company that doesn't fire people or make change if if it's relevant. I think they had that discussion, and they decided that it wasn't something that could have been pointed to this person or this person or this person. It was a likely a combination of causes, and it's better to keep people in their post that they have learned from this, instead of like making changes that would just destabilize the simulation. That's my take.
Yeah,
I was fortunate enough to be able to interview also Jorg and Seb during the the whole Grand Canyon thing when we were there, and they're very passionate about the product. There's no doubt about it, and you can tell that all these wheels were in motion, had to keep going. You just can't cancel all that stuff and just say nope. And even that, you got to take into account, everybody. We've said this before, even before the stream started today, that the product's been labeled 2024. It had to get released in 2024. Everything's been stamped with 2024. All their marketing materials, all their product, everything, logos, you name it. There's all the pressure of all of that. So, it had to come out the door and then deal with it. And so that's what we're doing. And here we are with a delayed update, which should have happened on the 18th. And, their statement, I have to agree with them, is that we're not going to put out the next update unless it actually is good, because then it'll get bashed again. And, there were people are already stinging. And I know our panel had talked about that before we went live, right? People are already stinging from the launch. You can't put out an update that's going to make them sting again. And so, there's that too. I agree with them waiting. Just like our independent developers who send airplanes for us to test. They won't give them to us until they know they're going to work right. They'll even delay them for weeks to make sure before they even send them to us, because they want to make sure that first impression is important, right?
Or
so
years.
they've learned from this already, you guys. Just the delay of the update means that they've learned, right?
I think it was very telling that this launch was very different from 2020. I mean, thinking back to kind of the build up to it, I mean, the global preview event we had for 2020 happened about a year before the sim came out. So it's like September, and then it came out in August the following year. And there was I know it's very different. Microsoft are trying to introduce this brand new concept of streaming the world into the sim, new teams to the world of flight simulation, Microsoft coming back. So there was a very different goal, I think, for the marketing. But then even having the global preview event for 24, 2 months away from the release, and then kind of this very quick, brief technical alpha. Was it in October? I think it was in October, wasn't it? And then even for the launch, and this is kind of maybe like a peek behind the curtain for people, but from a reviewer's perspective, I personally didn't get my copy for review until I think it was release day. And I think that was the same for every single organization, which is kind of different to how things like that similarly have happened in the past. I mean, even with 2020, I got my review copy, I would say maybe 10 days before the sim came out. And you could kind of tell there was maybe things were a little bit different behind closed doors for this particular launch. And I think we kind of saw that come to fruition afterwards. That's not to say, things weren't completely ready, but it certainly felt like the timelines had been very much compressed in comparison to what we saw with 2020. And I think that's kind of where we're kind of at now with 24. I don't know if anyone else kind of felt that same sort of experience with, previewing it or, even testing it beforehand.
Yeah, I thought so. And I actually asked Jorg like 2 times, both in Arizona, and like I had an interview with Jorg like literally 3 days before the release, and I was like, Jorg, can you tell me why you didn't do a beta? And I kind of felt that it was like not sure what he would say. I am 99% sure that he had to like follow instructions by someone, and I also have the impression that they were told by the people behind the infrastructure at Microsoft, we're gonna be fine, like, because the infrastructure is not hosted by Azobo, is not hosted by the team that does Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's as Azure, and it's a completely separate department of Microsoft. So I am 99% sure that they were told, we're going to be fine, no problem. And then, in fact, they noticed that things were not fine. And when things were not fine, they went back to Microsoft. And Jorg has been saying that the learnings from this launch is going to affect not just Microsoft Flight Simulator, but the whole plethora of games at Microsoft, because the people that do the infrastructure actually have learned stuff from this. So in the end, I was a little bit like asking him, and like at some point he tells me, at some point you have to release, and you can't do much about it. And I'm like, okay, well, let's hope for the and that's what he said. Like, let's hope for the best.
Let's hope for the best. Yeah, that's a
And
good
the best
interesting.
didn't happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting is that you brought up a good point. They were completely blindsided by this. Like, I mean,
I'm surprised, Blue, that they were blindsided by it.
Yeah,
because,
I mean, they were so
they manage
confident.
the cloud. I'm an Azure expert. They manage the cloud. They can predict. I don't think they predicted what was going to happen. How many users would simultaneously connect to cloud services? That's something that you predict. They even have tools for you to do that. So there's an insight that I have that most people don't, because I've been teaching Azure for years, and they could have predicted what's going to happen that day and be ready for it. So there is that part of it,
Sort of, right? If anyone could have solved database locking, Oracle would have done it by now, right? But they can't even solve database locking. They had so much users that it just all locked up. It's been a perpetual problem. I'm not saying that's giving them an excuse,
but
there is an understanding of why it happened,
right? But as an insight, you guys, billions of users. Just give me a second here. Billions of users are using Azure. Those are the business customers. We're using a small part of it for Flight Simulator, which is, they are huge databases distributed around the world. But simultaneous users isn't an issue. They know how to do that. So, there is that. I have an insight that makes it, why didn't they predict that properly? And I think they were just surprised. Wow, we got that many people first day. I think that was the bottom line.
One thing that Jorg said is that the problem was not as much a problem of traffic, like pure traffic, pure number of people trying to download, as a problem of a type of data that was being streamed. And
not download, it's not download, it's access,
And so that's what I think, that they were not used to that type of data. So people that do Azure are like probably considered this kind of traffic the same that they receive normally from their business traffic, from their normal customers, and it wasn't. So now they've learned, and hopefully it won't happen anymore.
Let's
they
hope
say that next if they do it again, they're going to have a year of beta, and I welcome that, definitely.
Yep. I think a lot of people welcome it. I think a lot of people have learned from this also, right? Let me just let me go to the next question. We do have some questions. Some questions are waiting from our chat too, so we'll address those in a minute, everybody. I want to mention our planned fourth question for the panel. If we can have each of you chime in on this. In November, you guys mentioned, or some of you mentioned in November on the panel, that it would take time for add-ons to transition to 24. And now we've had some time to see this, right? With the marketplace soon to be released and with updates coming soon, as we know, any day sort of thing, how is the add-on landscape for MSFS 2024 looking? And Blue, let's start with you, and we'll just go around from there. All right. What are you thinking about that? How's the add-on
from a non-developer perspective, it doesn't look good.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to hear from an actual dev, like, how's it going for them? Like, what have they been working on for the last 3-4 months? But as a person who just flight sim, and I'm waiting for those add-ons to come to 2024, I've seen very little movement. We hear announcements from different big developers saying, hey guys, we're going to charge, or we're not going to charge for our add-ons, or we're working on it, this and that, which is good. I know that the guys are not just sitting on their hands. A few developers have figured out how to get their product working and thriving in 24. Very few though. And so I think, this is just my prediction, this could all change. We learn when Sim Update 1 comes out, but I think that many developers are hard at work. They're using Sim Update 1 beta and all the SDK improvements. I'm not sure if you guys noticed how many SDK improvements have been in these Sim Update 1 betas. That's where the real like he is. Like I know, like when you look at the list of what's changing in the changelog of Sim Update 1, it doesn't sound that great, to be honest. I'm like, there's some things on there I still wish was there. Like VR is not until Sim Update 2. But the SDK, people are having this massive learning curve where they are trying to figure out how to get their aircraft into career mode. How do I make my aircraft work with firefighting? How do I use the wear and tear system? How do I just get it to work?
Yeah.
And the documentation from what I'm seeing hasn't been that great because they literally were working on how that even works up till release day. So all that was changing up until release day. So now they're finally putting that SDK information out there. People actually work out. So that's what I'm looking forward to still. So I don't have an answer really, except for so far it's not been good. Like I said, I have to go back to 2020. It's like some of my favorite planes because they're still 3 months later not.
But another example of this too, Blue, is when you see, like Alyson, also Cirrus airplanes, as many of us know, have a parachute system. And there's a big, you were just mentioning this earlier, right, Alyson, is that there's a big red button on the ceiling in the Cirrus. If the pilot is incapacitated, they can push that red button. Those of us who've studied that airplane know about that button. In 2020, what are you going to do with that, right? In 2024, they have a parachute deployment system right from the SimVars, and physically simulated. And Cirrus airplanes are the first ones that'll use that. It's a parachute system for the whole airplane, and it auto lands. There's two things there: it either auto lands or it actually uses a parachute system. And this is a safety thing about Cirrus airplanes that now is a reality in 24. But do the developers who make these planes for 24 know those new SimVars and know those new features and how to make them happen? And there's why there's a delay so far, because they're still learning how to refine that before they actually let us have it, right? I think that's part of it too. They're learning, like you said, Blue. They're learning, and they're just, now we're going to see products flood the market. Just like when they finally put helicopters native in 2020, all of a sudden there's a flood of helicopters. And I said to people, look out, here they come. And certainly we got them. Now they're native, of course, in 24, and we've got helicopters already built in, right? But we'll see that same sort of thing. Let's go back around the room now too, and Calum, let's have your opinion too of that last question too about the marketplace soon to be released. How is the add-on landscape looking? Do you think it's promising or something to really look forward to still?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be promising. Again, I think back to what 2020 had, and when that marketplace came out, we had 2 or 3 add-ons. And then we saw a catapult of thousands of add-ons eventually. It's just going to take time, and as people grow more confident with the SDK, and in fact, I would say the add-on market for 24 is probably in a much better position than it was for 2020, because we've already got, I just released the 350 for 20 and 24, which is incredible. Phoenix is already compatible. Blight is like an experimental branch for 2024. A bunch of our airports kind of just work. I would say most airports just you can drag and drop into 2024 and they're fine. Of course, there are some developers who are making native ones or more kind of premium ones that kind of take advantage of the technologies. But it's not like we're starting from scratch with 2024 moving from 2020. And I think as, again, developers get more confident with the technology and the SDK becomes a little bit more stable, and kind of like what Blue was saying, the core Asobo and Microsoft team are listening to third-party devs and hearing what they want added from a variable perspective or from a technological perspective, and they're doing a lot of work to implement it. I know there's going to be some add-ons that people want, i.e. a native camera system or a weather API. Frankly speaking, if we haven't had it after 5 years, I just don't see us getting it ever.
Well, we might. Let's hope we're surprised, right?
I'd love to be surprised. I know we've got Chase Plane coming, but they're kind of using stuff external to the sim, so we won't see it on Xbox, for example. So yeah, we'll see. I think we're in a strong position. We're going to have a great sim, and I think it's just about developers adapting to modern technology, what modern gaming engines have been using, as Giuseppe was saying, for the last 5-6 years. So once they start to do that, we're going to see some amazing add-ons. I just saw the trailer for AnyBuilds Heathrow, and some of the level of detail. I'm at Heathrow Airport tomorrow, and I can tell you exactly what check-in desk I'm going to based on that trailer. So yeah, it's
that's cool.
it's going to be an exciting time.
So
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. Last part.
Yesterday I saw Pyrig. Sorry, I will never be able to pronounce that name, but they literally shown a working elevator at the Birmingham airport, and I'm like, what? But I think me and Calum have a different perspective on this because we work with news, so we actually see how many developers release their add-ons when they do release them all the time, because that's our bread and butter.
Right.
And I think you're gonna have two different perspectives in this. The perspective of the person that's waiting for PMDG, or like one big, really important
Their
developer,
right?
and then that's the perspective you're gonna say, oh no, that it's moving too slow, because what you are waiting for is not there. But in terms of looking at the big picture, I think things are moving pretty fast. Just Flight's there, Phoenix there, a lot airports, most of them work, and those that don't work are coming, or they're coming pretty fast. So I think the situation, even without the marketplace, has been pretty good. The one thing, of course, and we can't discount that, is that the marketplace is a big monetary source for many developers.
Right.
So of course, a lot of people are not getting as much money as they would like to, because the marketplace is not there.
Not there. Right?
Luckily, when the marketplace is gonna be there, I'm hoping that the money is gonna start flowing again for these developers. But yeah, the situation is not as bad as it could be. Is much better than 2020, definitely.
I just want to mention too, on that same note, is that the marketplace is supposed to have the ability to rent, which was actually a feature that Jorg insisted on, using the analogy of back in the day of Blockbuster, when you can rent a movie instead of buy it. And then when you buy the movie, you can put your rental cost toward the movie. Well, that's supposed that he made that happen in Flight Sim 2024. When the marketplace comes out, a lot of us want to rent a plane first and check it out, and then decide whether to keep it or not. And we can put that price toward the purchase price. That's a cool feature. Let's see it. Let's see it. And we're just waiting for that marketplace to come, right? Another example of discovering what the new sim can do. When Say Intentions wanted to do missions without going into career mode, they can inject fire and smoke on a mountain, and you can do missions now with interactive voice without using career mode. I mean, they just had to look at all the new variables in 24 and go, yeah, we can do that. And they set to work on that. And within a few days, they had that happening too. You can now do missions there. So they're discovering, and they're making their products and refining their products, and we're going to see the market just flood, I think. Alyson, your thought on that before we go on to Q&A? And sorry,
I'm pretty much with Blue. Okay. I think that we're missing quite a bit. However, we've had new planes, we've had new things. Personally, I'm only bringing things in that are 2024 ready for now, because I can just go to 2020 if I want to use them. Right. But the A350 is in there, and I'm flying her, and I love her. So I'm more ready for utilities. There's a lot of utilities that we grew to love, right? If you're a streamer. Flow Pro. I want Flow Pro tomorrow, please.
Yeah, I think a lot of us missed that, right? Yeah.
The one thing I would add, the last thing I would add is about the weather APA. We thought we'll never get Chase Plane, and Chase Plane is coming. So you never know.
Let me do some of the questions, you guys. We only have about 13 minutes left in the stream, so I just want to make sure we cover some of the questions from the Q&A and chat in the various chats that we have here. One of them here, I think his name. Let me just have a look here. Captain Jet Salt says, "How long until you think MSFS 2024 will overtake 2020 in terms of active users?" I'm not sure any of us are qualified to even make that projection, right? But it's a good question. But how long? I mean, how long did it take for 2020 to overcome the FSX users? I mean, we could look back at history, right? Anybody want to take a stab at that question? How long will it take?
Yes, 2020, not FSX.
No, but I'm using the analogy of 2020 after what, 15 years is like how many FSX? And I have students that are still on FSX, but they moved to 2020 after a certain period of time. In this case, who would move from 2020 to 2024 and overtake the user count so that 2020 now has less users, right? And it's a good question, and I'm not sure we're the team to answer that, right?
York said that they already did. I don't know if you guys don't believe him. I tend to believe him because I don't see why he would lie about that. But
Is that active concurrent users? Because
he said
there's a difference between users and concurrent users.
I don't.
Concurrent, okay.
I wouldn't know that because the only thing we can see is Steam, and Steam is a pretty small part of the user.
Oh yeah, that's just a portion of it. Yeah.
So in the end, if Jorg says that he already did buy a little, I think he said buy a little. I think it may already. Personally, I would say that by June, if we get like Sim Upgrade 3, we're probably going to be pretty much.
Lots of people waiting for the
that's
updates.
my
Once
opinion.
the updates in the marketplace are here, I hear from a lot of the community that they're going to go full blast, right? So I agree with that.
I think that it varies, based on, Blue said he thinks 18 months, right? 2 years. A lot of people in my community are like, I'm not going to try it for a year, not going to try it for 18 months. I think once the first 2-3 updates are in, having seen the quality of Sim Update 1, I think that there will be a larger percentage of people at least trying it again. So let's just hope that's true, because there is a lot of potential in the new Sim. Ultimately, we wanted innovation to breed competition, and competition breed innovation, right? Without the two, you can't survive. So I'm just really looking. There are things in this Sim that will allow it to push beyond the boundaries of what we already have. Certainly, from a performance perspective, 2024 is way better for me. It takes me over 20 minutes to load into 2020. And it takes me 3 minutes to load into 2024.
Yeah.
I'm in
the
a plane.
client's smaller, yeah.
Yeah, the client's smaller, and the performance I have in terms of, you've all mentioned the multi-threading. I see it.
We all see it, yeah.
But they've got to earn back the people they've lost from the original launch.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah. Big job for them. A lot of pressure, right? One of the questions here that Evan has posted for me here, some think it took time for 2020 to improve after the initial release, as we have mentioned here on the stream, you guys. Do you guys think we should have that mindset for FS24, or should we have expected FS24 to be polished on release? Well, just open that up.
Well, I don't think, right. So I think everyone expected an amazing, polished super release. It's software. I think that you have to have a certain expectation that there will always be bugs. It's software. Even if they do a beta, there will always be bugs. Was that expectation unrealistic by users who'd listened to the marketing, to the hype? It's subjective, and it's subjective in the person as they appear to have it, right? I think that probably we did deserve a little bit more polish, but that if they didn't have the time to do betas and hold the release until it was right, then we weren't going to get that anyway, even if we'd have hoped for it.
Maybe we could ask a question in chat, you guys, about if, let's say this to everybody who's in chat right now and to the panel too, right? If we got to be the FS 2024 producer for a week, if we were the producer for a week, what bugs and or feature requests would you want to fix or implement first? So we'll go around the room while people are typing that in, right? What do you guys think? We'll start with you, Calum, and we'll go right around the panel here. What would you, if you were the producer for a week, what bugs and or feature requests would you fix or implement first?
I mean, bugs, I have no idea, because I don't know. But in terms of features, my biggest like bugbear with it is the career mode. I wanted to love career mode because I thought the idea of fighting fires and finding tornadoes and all the rest of it we saw in the E3 trailer, or not E3, good God, the Xbox Bethesda trailer, that looks super cool. But then career mode just is, you have to go through so many hoops to even get there, and I honestly can't be bothered with some of the flights and things I have to do. I just want to fly and put out a fire. So if I was the producer, and I think many of us said this to the teams at the preview events and subsequent interviews, let me just fly, let me just choose what mission I want to do, and let me skip all the tutorial stuff. Or if you're Sergio from helisimmer.com, let me just go straight into a helicopter and skip GA.
There is that. He has a good point, doesn't he?
Yeah, that for me would be the thing I would like to have maybe seen a bit more focus on. And I know that we've kind of seen some of the stats for a lot of people are still using career mode, which is really promising to see that. Obviously, if people are using it, then there's going to probably be a focus on making that section of the sim
I
even
got
better
hundreds
in
of
the
hours
future.
in it, and I'm a pilot in real life. I got hundreds of hours in career mode, loving it, absolutely loving it. But I'm also very critical about their training. Their training had to have a balance for newbies and those who are qualified pilots, because they had to cut something out. They can't put in the normal curriculum, but that's another story. But let's go, Alyson. Let's come to you now and say, if you were producer for a week, what would you do? What new feature would you implement first? Or
one or two. Can I give you one or two features?
Sure.
The first feature would be multiplayer model matching.
Right. Model matching. Wow. That was always a topic in 2020. Now it's also a topic in 24 again.
It's huge, right?
It's huge. Yeah.
Everyone's a Fananza or an A320.
Okay.
So that's the first one.
That's the first one. Second one. We do like a fast round table here. You got
the third one. Sorry, the third one they've already fixed, which is being able to see people 100
further away.
miles away.
Right.
But the other one is, I would, as a front end senior product manager, I would work on the user interface. It's not as intuitive as it could be.
Maybe in the control section. I don't know.
Yes, in the control section.
Am I reading your mind?
I would rework it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Those are good ones. I'll mention some that came from chat, but let me just go across the room here. Giuseppe, what did you?
So mine's gonna be a little weird, I suppose, a little my niche. I would really push. I know Jörg said that they want to first fix the bugs and then do new features. But personally, my bugbear in this is the traffic. Traffic needs to be much better, and they put so much effort. I mean, AI traffic. They put so much effort in creating some beautiful AI models, and they are not used properly. I think, and I'm sorry if I'm going to offend some people here. I think they need to either drop or drop their partner they have in doing the AI data, and get Flight Radar 24 as a partner, because it has all the data that they need to do traffic properly. While I don't remember the name of the partner they have at the moment for the data.
But your feature would be to fix the AI stuff,
especially aircraft that you see at airports. Since the data provider they have does not have what aircraft are parked at the airport, while Flight Radar 24 has a list of all the aircraft that are parked at any given time. I don't want to see Alaska 737s in Japan. I'm sorry. That's so immersion breaking.
Refinement on the accuracy of that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I'm just going to move it on because we're running out of
time.
I want to hear from Blue too. What would be one of your maybe your top feature you want to fix right away?
I'm sitting here trying to think through this seriously, being CEO for a week. It's tough because you already said a lot of things. My number one actually was going to be what Calum said, which is the bringing the career mode stuff out of career mode and allowing you to do it whenever, wherever you want. That's my number one thing. I have a list here. Weather radar needs to come. Shared cockpit. They need a whole new. They need to go ahead and hire, say, Intentions, do their AITC and scratch whatever they're doing right now.
I would say that too.
Yeah. Also remove the requirement to talk to ATC in career mode. It's just completely immersion breaking. What else do I have? Pressing new stuff is just ridiculous. And also multiplayer in career mode, especially for firefighting.
The firefighting.
More,
well, as a note on your mention about Say Intentions, they already have missions that can do multiplayer while we're on voice, and we've been doing that without career mode. So that's a riot. I mean, if you haven't tried that, you guys, you got to try that.
The fire doesn't look as good yet.
Not yet. They've gone through 2 different models of fire. It's looking great.
Let me mention this, guys. I love it.
I want to mention what the responses were from our chat from our viewers. Responses to the questions of what they would change or fix right first, and right on the top of the list was multiplayer, VATSIM, pilot edge support. So something in there. I mean, they don't elaborate anymore on that. These are just bullets, right, of top things on the list, right? Second on the list was taxicam. Taxicam. You anybody on the panel want to elaborate? What's taxicam?
I mean, like on the 777 where you can.
Yeah. And the A340 and things
Oh,
like that.
and
See,
the
of course, the
350 as
airplanes
well.
I don't fly. See, I need to ask you guys about that. Okay, taxi cam. Stability, third on the list. I'm actually surprised that's not first on the list, but stability, okay.
Those
The
taxi cams are
VRAM,
important.
yeah, the VRAM, fixed VR. VRAM and fixed VR. Well, I think it was a VRAM bug that they're addressing in beta, but you know, and then fixed VR. I have some people saying how much they love VR, but I've also heard also on the dev streams from Microsoft about how in chat, every second chat was fix VR, fix VR. So I think there's still an issue there. Any of you guys here on the panel do VR and can speak to that?
So yes, originally, yes, it wasn't brilliant. In beta 1, I've had a lot more, I've had better results, but then I'm also on DLSS 4 now, and I think that that's had a significant impact in the ability of the headsets. I've got a Pimax Crystal, you know, it's quite demanding, and again, the multi-threading performance and DLSS 4 has really enhanced that experience. Is it right yet? No. 2020 took a while as well to get going.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Okay. But right now, it's in a good state. You know, you can pop on a headset in 2020 and go. When it launched, you couldn't. In update, I think it's much better.
Cool. Okay. And this, sorry, I realize now, Evans mentioned to me that this was in no particular order. So stability wasn't necessarily 3 on the list, you guys. It's just he's giving me the summary here. Disable walk around mode to start the flight. I mean, it's a realistic thing we do as pilots. We have to. We got to make sure that plane's fine, because once we're in the air, we can't check anything, right?
Yeah,
right, Alyson?
Literally
Well, there is an add-on. There is an add-on on FlightSim.to that lets you do just that.
Let you disable walk around mode. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah, people just want the option to turn it off.
It's literally one key press.
Yeah, and well, in career mode too, it's an Alt-N and just skip it, and you might lose a little experience on it. But another one, smoothness in VR. So it speaks to the VR, you know, fixed VR statement there, smoothness in VR. And then, as you said, Blue, shared cockpit was another one on the list, which I've always been adamant about when I'm teaching shared cockpit. I use that a lot in 2020. I used it with Jane on the MSFS official channel for all her lessons. Shared cockpit is a necessity, I thought, right from day one. We've been asking for it in 2020.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't add it, because of course I've done round the world flights with shared cockpits using your controls with Captain Arash.
Using your controls,
being able to be in the same plane at the same time would be wonderful, especially for some stuff I've got coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, and then finally on the list I see ATC improvements, right? Yeah, ATC improvements. And, you know, Blue, you mentioned that too when you mentioned Say Intentions. I've mentioned that to you guys. I mean, Say Intentions is so innovative. I'm not going to sit and talk about them forever. I am a partner with them. I think that they've done such a great job that I put my full faith behind them of what they've done and their innovations. And I'm loving the fact that I can have more realism with my students when we're teaching phraseology, whether it be IFR end-to-end or VFR. And I just have always told people, ATC that's built into 2020, ATC that's built into 2024 will help you to start to learn the phraseology. You're getting a clearance, you have to do a reply. I mean, I start with the basics, but then I tell them you'll outgrow that very quickly. And especially if it's not accurate, if it's not giving you a proper IFR clearance, or it's telling you your readback was correct when it wasn't. And, you know, if things like that are going on, then where's the learning stop? And then you're learning mistakes. So you have to move on to another product, whether it be Beyond or, you know, whether it be Pilot Edge or VATSIM or Say Intentions. You got to go to something else if you're going to excel that learning into a more realistic environment. And I'm loving it. So ATC improvements, I think they would have got that by now. We've been asking for it for 5 years in 2020. And here we in 2024, it's like, it seems similar. Am I right, you guys?
Yeah,
it seems similar. Shouldn't that be changed?
Can I add one more? I would actually, in my week, I would sign a deal with Sony to add Microsoft to Sony as well as Xbox.
Oh, PS4, PS5, and Switch is coming. I'm already sure about that.
You're sure about that? Is that right?
Well, okay. I don't have first-hand information.
Right.
I asked Jorg recently.
You're on a big screen. Don't lie.
Yeah.
No, I asked him on screen on record, and he told me that he was thinking that the first Microsoft Flight Simulator was on many platforms. It didn't confirm anything, of course. But the people that brought up that rumor, the PS5 and Switch 2 rumor, are in the gaming industry are pretty solid. So, and especially the people that came up second and confirmed it that it's probably coming, I trust them. So I don't have any. Again, I don't have any
Me too.
first-hand information, but I trust these people.
I do too.
And,
The
and,
one thing
and
that-
I think a good backup of that is that it's just been confirmed that Forza, one of Xbox's
Exactly.
favorite games, is coming to PS5 as well. So they're not completely against crossing over. They got their money on Xbox already. Now, like, hey, let's give them some more money.
No
on something.
game is
Yeah.
off the table. Is
Yeah,
what
and
they've said.
MSFS is probably the most profitable game to put on as many platforms as possible, because we have to remember that they have a third-party marketplace, which is basically hundreds or thousands of DLCs that they actually don't have to pay to make, and the more people they get sold to, the better. The one thing that I would say, we are going to probably have to wait a long time for shared cockpit, at least a year from what I've been told during interviews by Jorg. But the one thing that I would like to have before shared cockpit is the ability to transport other players in multiplayers as passengers. That would be so cool. Like in my plane, sitting by my side, or in the cabin. That would be so cool.
Well, in fact, Alyson, you and I both know we can do that already with shared cockpit with, the tool we've been using in 2020. You can actually put as many people as you want, although most times I just have me and a student or me and someone else, right? And it's called Your Control. And we could actually put 6 people in the plane, but they'd have to pick their own seats, right? But they would be experiencing it now from, let's say, the back seat of a Cirrus or something, right? So that we've had a taste of that, and we just like, yes, build that in, put that in, make that product. But so I think that would be a great feature, right?
I asked Jorg about that in Flight Sim Expo in Houston, because I'm looking at doing Robert Ford's Long Way Home in a Boeing 314 Clipper, and I don't just need a co-pilot and a pilot. I need an engineer and a navigator and everything else. So wouldn't that be an amazing? I mean, Captain Rash and my collaboration I thought was really, really good. But
that was a good collaboration, yeah.
Right. Wouldn't it be great with 4 or 5 simmers all flying a 314 around the world all together in a what a
we would all have to wrestle for the yoke, though. That's the problem, Alyson.
Yeah, but
we're used to being in control.
Captain Rash, he'll be back on the navigation table. He know where he lives. And
Get
then
back
you
on
and I
that
can fly the
table
plane.
back there. Yeah.
Microsoft has been all about accessibility and bringing new people into simulator. I try to teach people to like about flight simulation. What would be the best way to introduce new people to flight simulation than just telling, I'm gonna fly. You don't need to do anything. Just sit by my side, enjoy the sights. You see what I'm doing and you enjoy it. Like it would be so 9,000% more easier to introduce more new people.
You just do it like in real life. They're in the left seat. They're the ones actually there. You tell them when to take control. They say, I take control. I mean, this is a method that's been used in teaching for years. And we use that in the sim too, and it's effective. And that's what I did with Jane too on the Microsoft official channel. Very effective. So yeah, that shared cockpit thing is just compulsory. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time. We could do this all day, couldn't we?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We could sit here and just keep taking more questions, but I think it's at that time that we have to go around the room to wrap up. Any last comments you'd like to make? And we'll start again with Calum, and we'll go around the panel and just say any last words before we wrap up today. What are your thoughts?
I am gutted that the launch kind of fell flat, and I think a lot of people are, both from a community perspective and also from the developer's perspective. I don't want it to hold like sour grapes for the future. I think flight simulation, we are in a hugely golden age right now. We've got planes, airports, utilities coming out of our ears, and things can only get better without breaking into song. But yeah, I think just have some patience, have some faith. The community, the developers are clearly listening. You have to just watch their streams. I know firsthand, as many of the people here who have spoken to Jorg and Seb and the rest of the Asobo and Microsoft team, they are passionate people. They love this flight. They love flight simulation. I believe that we will be eating good next year, if not sooner. So have faith, have patience. Flight simulation will still be good, if not better, within a few months.
Thank you, Calum. That's great. Blue, what are your last thoughts here as we wrap up?
My last thoughts, I know we've been a little sour a little bit throughout the stream, but is fly what you love. Fly what works and fly what you love. Don't feel pressure to go to 24 if you already have 2020. If you don't have any sim at all, just get 24. But seriously, like just fly what works, fly what you enjoy, fly what you love. It's a golden age, like you said, in flight sim. We have more planes, more add-ons, more airports that have ever existed in flight sim. It's
Even-
amazing, especially if you have both sims. If you have both 2020 and 24. I mean, there's very few planes we're missing.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to some stuff, right? Like 757 and a few other planes that don't exist currently in the sim. But for the most part, we have pretty much everything we've been asking for the past
Dash 4,
5,
thank
6
you.
years.
Please,
Yeah,
please,
there you go.
developers, give me Dash 4.
Yeah,
Give me
yeah.
dash
So
4.
it's good. So I'll say this: fly what you love. With
That's a
us
really
for
good
2020, and just stick in there, right? Hold in there until
Fly
this
what you love. Yeah, that's a
this
good
next
way to do.
update comes out, and I do believe it is going to get better. So,
Alyson, your thoughts on this and closing?
How do you follow Blue on that one? I mean, I
Yeah,
pretty much-
it's like, wow, fly what you love. I mean, it's like, he has a great message. Yeah,
you know, because
right.
you know,
I'm putting it on a poster.
yeah,
that's
exactly.
right.
Fly what you love.
Let's put up
Just be patient. 2020 took its time to get what it is,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
It will get
True.
better. We will have a marketplace. We will have all the add-ons we love. It's just going to take a little bit of time. But while you've got that time, you've got both sims. Just do what you have to. You know, do what you enjoy. You know, there's no point in doing anything that you don't enjoy. You know, the sim is a passion. We've all had it. Once you've got bitten by it, you can't give it up. But
Right.
just have a little bit of patience. I think, you know, it's been through a rough patch, but I think that, you know, we've had the best hardware we've had. We have force feedback is coming back now that all the patent wars have gone. We've got some great planes coming. We've got, you know, some super add-ons, coming. Chase plane. I've been waiting for that for ages. You know, it will be there.
It's an exciting time.
It is an exciting time, but we just have to a bit of patience.
And Giuseppe, last thoughts?
Yeah, so I have to apologize to Blue for interrupting, and I actually but I had to like literally take the occasion to beg any developer that's listening to give us a Dash 8. Actually, I mean Dash 8, not Dash 4, of course.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was going to say dash 8, but I didn't want to.
Yeah, it was a Dash 8.
Okay, you
I
want
was
4?
confused when you
Okay,
said
you go for
4.
the
I
4.
thought-
I'm going for the 8.
I meant Dash 8. Sorry, I'm a little
I'll back
tired.
you up. I
What's
want
a
an
few
8 as well.
digits? What's a few digits? Okay.
Yeah,
But-
I definitely meant the Dash 8, but yeah, I definitely going to agree with Calum because we are eating so good at the moment. I remember the times in which Microsoft was not there, and those were dark times, very, very dark times. And now we have so many things to enjoy, even if there is problems. And yeah, the problems were there. Lessons have been learned. I'm sure they have been learned very, very, very clearly. So now we just have to wait. I think by June this year, maybe July, with Sim Update 3, we're going to be much in a better shape. But even just with Sim Update 3, 2, if it comes in April or May, I feel like it's going to be a good time. So yeah, let's just wait for the lesson learned. Let's just wait for the lesson learned to take hold, and you see it's gonna be good.
And as Super Typhon says on my channel, he says the Dash 4 is actually the DHC4. You think about how the word Dash 8 came about, you guys. Dash 7. It was actually the symbol dash and then the 8, the symbol dash and then the 4. So the Dash 4 is really the DHC4, which is there already, right?
Oh yeah, Dash 4 is
there.
there.
It was a good point. Thanks, Super Ty. You guys, one last thing, and here we go. I'm going to go right around the room with a yes or no. How many of you are going to FS weekend?
I'm not.
Yes.
I wish I could go.
2 out of all of us. Yeah, that's too
I
far.
want to go. I really
Expensive
want to
for
go.
me. Yeah. Okay.
I wish
so
for too much work.
here's the second question to finish up. How many of us in the panel are going to FS Expo? Coming in
Not
June.
this year. Not this year.
I don't know.
was
America's
Three of
far.
Yeah, see,
It's not that
It's
far.
the pond that's dividing us, right? FS weekend, there's 2, and there's 3 of us going to FS Expo.
Hey,
so
we're
that'll be
aviation. We have
fun in June,
planes.
you
There's no
guys. That'll be
excuses
great.
for being far.
Whenever you
I
go to
wish.
Japan, you
Maybe.
can get to America.
I want to thank all of you for your comments and for your interactivity. I want to also thank Evan for having all of us here and letting us just speak our minds on whatever's going to happen. Nothing was scripted except some structure about how it's going to go today. And I really appreciate you having us join in and participate. So thanks a lot, Evan, for having us.
Well, thank you, Howard, and to the entire panel for the great conversation and discussion. And of course, my webcam has decided that now is the time it wants to stop working. So you can hear my voice, but you can't see me. But I am here. And on behalf of all of us here at Flight Simulation Association, super appreciate y'all being with us this afternoon. Great questions in the chat, great conversation today. And for the panelists who were involved with their opinions, it was just great for me to be able to listen to and share and just hang out with you guys for a little bit. Again, I'm supposed to be on the screen. I apologize for being audio only here, but I will say just a couple quick things as we wrap up. March 29th at 5 o'clock Eastern, which I hope is 2100 UTC, that is when we'll be back on stream with FS Elite to reveal the first round of exhibitors for Flight Sim Expo 2025. So if you are wondering who the 56 exhibitors that are already signed up for Flight Sim Expo 2025 are, that is the day and time to mark down, March 29th at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on our YouTube channel. And for those of you who are interested in Pilot Edge and flying with real ATC and experiencing what the thrill is to be able to rock your wings as you're flying into a place like Sun and Fun, in about 2.5 hours from now at 7 o'clock Eastern, we will be live again with Kevin from Pilot Edge to talk about all of that. And here's hoping my webcam decides to work by then. On behalf of all of us at Flight Sim Association, appreciate you being with us this afternoon. See some of you later tonight. See some of you at FS Weekend in Lelystad, maybe at Sun and Fun in Lakeland, or at Flight Sim Expo in Providence. Have a great evening.